Thank you, everybody, for coming out and for covering this. I am going to do my absolute best to make this as nonpartisan a conversation and delivery as possible, because there is nothing partisan about what is happening. And the theme of today's press conference is, what about us? What about the people that live along the border? What about the Americans that live here? What about the Border Patrol agents? What about the sheriffs and the deputies? What about the people that are just in Mexican side legally trying to come over? What about us? What about the city of Eagle Pass? What about the railway that brings so much trade and commerce? What about us? I'll start with some numbers, and then I'll share a little bit of the day and some stories. So one, here in Eagle Pass, there's over 10,000 people in detention. That is a historic number. Yesterday, there was over 4,000 that came over. Once again, another astronomical number. And yesterday, Border Patrol, CBP, was able to decompress, process, get over 4,000 people out. Another historic number. But yet, more people are still coming. And there's more people in the pipeline. And I suspect Christmas will be worse than today. And New Year's will be worse than today. We're going the absolute wrong direction. I visited Firefly earlier. That place I visited many times. This is my district. I woke up in San Antonio. I'll spend the day in Eagle Pass. I'll go to Sanderson, and I'll sleep tonight in El Paso. And I'll visit tomorrow with folks in El Paso and the Border Patrol there, and we'll talk about what's happening out there. I visited this firefight facility earlier today. That has a max capacity of 1,000 people. There was nearly 6,000 people in there. I've never seen it that high. Border Patrol agents, many of them are going to have to work during Christmas. So while America is opening up their presents under the tree with smiles all around, Eagle Pass and the people of Eagle Pass and the people of El Paso and the people in Arizona and the people along the border are going to be stuck having to deal with this border crisis. There are very simple things that need to happen in order for this to end. One, we need to surge immigration judges to the border. This is America. People need to get their cases heard in days, not years. And if they do not qualify for asylum, they need to be deported. And once you do that, just like we did in Del Rio a year and a half ago when there was Haitians under the bridge, this goes away. Just like they did in years past under different administrations. You have to surge immigration judges to the border. You got to get cases heard, and you got to deport people that do not qualify for asylum. I've been working very closely on border negotiations. Just yesterday, I had a conversation with one of the senators that's very much involved, trying to come up with real solutions. I will work with anyone to make this go away. Because once again, what about us? The city of Eagle Pass has received $0 federal dollars in reimbursement. The emergency responders have had to deal with countless numbers of dead people, people that have perished in the water. Right now, the water's a little bit down, so not as many people are drowning, but that could easily change. The hospital is filled. If you live in Eagle Pass, imagine this. Imagine something happens to you. You dial 911, and you cannot go to the hospital because there are no beds. Because all the beds are filled. I'm not making this up. This is where we're at. Border Patrol agents are doing everything they can to take care of the situation, but they're completely overwhelmed. Completely just overwhelmed with the situation, and it's getting worse. The bridge. The bridge is a large part of everyday life for any border community. You have Americans that travel back and forth to visit family members, to go shopping, and it's under siege. Right now, earlier today I visited the port of entry here in Eagle Pass. I spoke with a woman that had been in line for 15 hours. And why was she in line for 15 hours? Because today is her daughter's birthday. And she's traveling to San Antonio to visit her daughter. This is the everyday life. Imagine you're in New York City and the Brooklyn Bridge takes you 15 hours to get to the city. Imagine you're in San Francisco, you're in California, and the Golden Gate Bridge takes you 15 hours. It's no different than any community here on the border. The train is so vital to our commerce, and it has been shut down for days. Why has it been shut down? Because there are tens of thousands of migrants using that train to enter the country illegally. And historically, this isn't the first time we've shut the train down. But when we shut the train down, there was an immediate effect. The train has been shut down for 3 days now, and the impact is only getting worse. So what does that mean? That means the tools that have been used in previous are no longer working. We're beyond a breaking point. We're already there. And this train doesn't just stop in Eagle Pass. This train doesn't just impact Texas. This train impacts all of America. Goods that are going to all over America. Essentially, if you're doing it the right way, if you're here, you know, you're trying to visit family and you're trying to get goods and services, you're being punished. While those that are coming over illegally have just constant interest in there. I want to share something. I'm sending a letter today to it's called the Four Corners. Essentially to Senator Schumer, Senator McConnell, Speaker Johnson, and Minority Leader Jeffries. There's a bunch of things in this letter. This is the desperate state I'm in. There's a bunch of things in this letter that I'm saying to them, but this is one thing I want to highlight in particular. The severity of this security gap cannot be understated. Beyond increases in drug smuggling at the border, years of counterterrorism efforts are being undone. Law enforcement is beyond their limits to continue holding the line, and the possibility of a terrorist act committed in relation to this border crisis is higher than ever. In my district, local communities have no further resources to continue sustaining this migrant crisis. I am sounding the alarm as loud as I possibly can. And this threat is not only external. People are upset. All over this country, people are upset for what's happening here. And I think back to Oklahoma City bombing. That was an internal threat. So this crisis that has been caused, I don't care how we got here. I don't care whose fault it is. I don't care about the politics. I want this to end, and I want our country to be safe from internal threats as well as external threats. And I'm willing to work with anyone. I'm willing to talk to anyone that wants to sit down and do that. And the time for talk is over. But we have to sit down and we have to work through this negotiating deal and get something that's meaningful done over the finish line. And anybody that's going to push back against that, I will fight them with everything I have, because this has to come to an end. We need to have open trade and commerce again. Our people, the city manager was just telling me there are people living here that are calling him going, hey, my mother wants to come visit for Christmas. Can she do that? What lane does she get in? How long is she going to be? Is she going to be stuck there? I visited about 10 days ago. I visited with some of the first responders that have been pulling these babies out of the water. They're exhausted. We're all exhausted. This crisis has spiraled way out of control, and we are at the point of no return. That is where we're at, the point of no return. So while the time to act is now, I'll take some questions.
What do your colleagues on the Hill not get about the border?
I have hosted over 100 members of Congress, mostly Republicans, but I've hosted some Democrats. I visited not only in my district, but I visited Arizona as well. For many people, the border is very foreign to them. They will come in, they'll get a taste of it for a day, and then they'll leave. But the border no longer stops at the border. It impacts all of America. All of America. And so the hard part is, here's the hard truth. Is there a lot of politics involved in when you start talking about immigration and border security? A lot of politics. Politics that people don't want to let go of. On one end, you've got people going, this is politically lucrative to us, and this is going to help us win the 2024 election. On the other end, you've got people celebrating this open border policies because they believe in those open border policies. And in the middle is America that is impacted by this fentanyl crisis, that is impacted by this migrant crisis, and it just impacts all of us. So I'm urging us, now the time to act is now. The time to act is now.
When we were here last, we were watching Mexican immigration vans drop off migrants. I know that Mexico has an issue with their immigration agency at the moment, whether it's budget, federal authorities paying attention to other problems that Andres Manuel López Obrador is dealing with. How can you deal with this without their cooperation? Because we know there's just tens of thousands of them in Mexico. My sources tell me that right now is the time for them to travel because they're basically facing no, like the agents aren't stopping them. So essentially my question is, Are you working with Mexican authorities? It seems like it's impossible for you to do anything if you don't have Mexican immigration cooperating south of the border. So what's happening between Mexico and the U.S. right now?
Mexico is our neighbor. Mexico will always be our neighbor. And the stronger the relationship between U.S. and Mexico, the better for both countries. But if you think American politics is ugly, you should look into Mexican politics, right? And so you've got local issues, you've got states on the other side, you've got the central government. They have their own issues to worry about. And that is intertwining with a lot of this. But you're absolutely right. This is a partnership. And when I've sat down with Mexican officials, when I've had conversations, it's been very clear. Tony, if things were so bad, the administration would be urging us to do more. And so I've been urging them to do more. Congress has a role to play in this. The administration has a role to play in this. We all have a role to play in this. But until that all comes together, I mean, I've gotten calls to go, hey, Tony, can you let us know what's going to be in this border, from Mexican officials saying, can you let us know what's going to be in this border deal because it's going to impact us. So it is a two-way street on how things work. But I'm not seeing the level of cooperation that I've seen in years past. That's evident when you have this at our doorstep, and it needs to change.
Speaking of, I mean, I kind of want to call your attention to the fact that we're seeing someone be taken off medically. Again, this is the second time in 30 minutes or so. You know, it seems like this area is a no man's land that continues to grow overnight, temperatures into the 40s. Who is in charge of this area and making sure that while they are here, they are safe?
I've met with Border Patrol today, both headquarters as well as the officer in charge of this location. And let me share with you, that's a great question. Let me share with you a little bit of the systematic process that happens. Somebody comes over illegally over the water, okay? They come over, they get a wristband, and then they get put in line, essentially the back of the line. It's an orderly process, essentially, and they get put in the back of the line. They get a waiting number, if you will. While they're in line, they get served tacos. They get served bean and cheese tacos, so they have something to eat while they're there. They're picking up people in groups of 37, 47, 15 is kind of the group. 15 at a time. You've got single adult males on one side, families on others, and you're getting in groups of 15. And buses. Yesterday, they had a historic number of buses, I think over 40 or 50 buses, come and pick people up and bus them out. Now, they're not busing them across to Mexico. They're busing them to San Antonio and El Paso and Laredo and other places. And then these people are going in those buses that have been processed because they're doing some processing right here. There's others that are going to the facility. Many of these people have been waiting here for days before they're processed. And there's thousands, tens of thousands on the Mexican side waiting as well.
Is that sustainable?
It is not sustainable. Just when you think you've hit the bottom, you haven't. That's why I'm saying, come here on Christmas Day. It's going to be worse. Come here on unless we do something now. No more finger pointing. No more it's somebody else's fault. Unless we do something now, it's not going to change.
We closed the border for 3 years under Title 42, and now asylum seekers who want to do it the right way, they have to register and use the CBP-1 app, and they're stuck in Mexico, many of them facing dangerous situations from the cartel. It takes them 6 to 8 weeks to even get an appointment. So they have this desperate situation where their only opportunity to apply for asylum is to do it this way.
So I visited the port of entry where there were 60 people that did it through the CBP-1 app. 60. There are 10,000 people coming over, okay? That process is completely broken. The facts are 9 out of 10 people that we're looking at do not qualify for asylum. they're not going to qualify. Whether their court date is in 3031 or their court date is tomorrow, they're not going to qualify. Because if you ask, and many of y'all have, if you ask why they're here, it's one simple reason. They're here for economic purposes. They're fleeing economic persecution. That's why they're fleeing. And the cartels are the ones that are facilitating that. So they're not fleeing the cartels. The cartels are helping them flee economic persecution. And 9 out of 10 will not qualify for asylum. So this is broken. You know, what is also broken, we're not talking about legal immigration. There is no discussion about legal immigration. There is no discussion about work visas. There is no discussion on that. Everything is consumed with the illegal aspect that's happening. We'll take 2 more questions and I'll be good. Right here.
Yeah, so this week Governor Abbott signed SB 4, which gives local authorities and state authorities the power to help with the situation, but address the situation. What do you think about that?
I don't think that goes in effect, if I'm correct. It doesn't go in effect until March. What I'm seeing is the state is doing everything it possibly can to keep its head above water and is trying to help out. But this is a federal issue. This is a federal issue, and this only stops when the federal government responds. Last one.
Given that so many people are coming here in economic desperation, as a global superpower, what is the U.S.'s role in helping countries like Venezuela, Nicaragua? What is the foreign policy response to what is an international crisis as much as it is a domestic issue?
The U.S.'s role is to take care of Americans. That is our role. Americans should be put before anyone else. As an American, I feel that. When I call 911, there should be someone on the other end of that. Right? When I pay my local taxes and I'm asking my city to take care of our streets, when I want to visit legally ports of entry, when I want my goods and services to be on the train coming over here, what about us? What about the people that live here? What about the people that are doing it the right way? What about us? We are the ones forgotten in this entire equation. Everyone is talking about everything else but us. It's time for us. It's time for all politicians to put the politics aside and protect our country, make sure our people, Americans, are safe, Americans are prosperous, and Americans have everything that they need. I want to thank the city manager. I want to thank the city manager for being here and working so closely with us. We'll keep working together. I want to thank Union Pacific, Raquel, the rep here. The trade and commerce is so critical, not only to this community, but many communities all across the border and the United States. It's Christmas. Where do you think those gifts are going to be coming from? They're going to be on trains. They're going to be on these different things. And I want to thank the emergency manager for everything they do to keep us safe. Thank you, everybody, for covering it. Y'all have a wonderful day.
Can I just ask you to elaborate on that sentence you